Hello, I am Tootight Lautrec, the master mistress of the Sonnetarium. And we are here in the Sonnetarium at the bottom of the down staircase in the permanently sequestered remainders section of an unnamed local library, which may or may not have a lion couchant on the steps, just waiting for you to come by and say hello. We are here today. I'm going to put my whip crack away. The maid will get that later. Actually, the butler will get that later. We're here today to talk about Sonnet 20. Things are heating up in a way that just sets my senses a-twitter. Some say that this hot little sonnet, Sonnet 20, is proof positive, rock hard, if you will, and I will, proof that Shakespeare was gay. Not everyone is convinced. If we look again at Alan Bray's quote in Homosexuality in Renaissance England, I will remind you that he says, "To talk of an individual in this period as being or not being a homosexual is an anachronism and ruinously misleading." Ruinously misleading. Now, a word about buggery, which perhaps that should be my next series, a word about buggery. A word about buggery. The term is meant to gather together a whole bunch of immoral and horrible practices, among which are sex with men who have sex with men and women who have sex with women and people who have sex with beasts, apparently, in Renaissance times. King Henry VIII signed into force the Buggery laws, and under those Buggery laws, you could lose all of your land and your life. So homosexuality was no laughing matter. If you were caught, you could be put to death. Sometimes you'd just be put into the pillory, which was no treat in itself because you'd stand there in the pillory with your arms and your legs in the stocks, and people would come by and throw filth at you and spit upon you and sometimes beat you with a wooden bat until you bled and died anyway, so it might just as well have been a death sentence. Now, the term buggery, I have found, they think it comes from the word Bulgarian, because during the Crusades, apparently the Christians were fighting against the Bulgarians, and they used the term to describe anything that was particularly nasty and disgusting, and certainly no way that we would want to live as Christians. And it was a way for the Catholic Church to seize lands from people, and it's all about land and it's all about the church, it turns out. So King Henry VIII signed the Buggery laws into effect. Queen Mary rescinded the Buggery laws because she thought this would be better handled in ecclesiastical courts, and then Queen Elizabeth I signed them back into force. So during Shakespeare's time, the Buggery laws were in full effect, and it would have been a capital sentence to be found having relations with someone of the same sex. So we must keep that in mind when we're reading this poem. But something's going on here which, it's not to say that that type of thing didn't occur. We are all just animals, and homosexuality has been around since the time of Adam and Steve. So we should go through this poem and see. I'll just show you what I'm talking about. Sonnet 20. A woman's face, with nature's own hand painted hast thou, the master mistress of my passion. And excuse me for a moment. We have a man with a woman's face. A woman's face, sorry, I'll set this aside and read it clean. 20. A woman's face, with nature's own hand painted, hast thou, the master mistress of my passion. A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. An eye more bright than theirs, less false in rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazeth. A man in hue, all hues in his controlling, which steals men's eyes and women's souls amazeth. And for a woman wert thou first created, till nature, as she wrought thee, fell a-doting, and by addition me of thee defeated, by adding one thing to my purpose, nothing. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy love's use their treasure. Okay. Oh, I broke my hornet. Okay, we'll have to go to the little one. And while we're at it, let's get the perpetrator up on the blocks here. A woman's face with nature's own hand painted. Well, we have a very lovely person apparently, and yet we have the master mistress of my passion. So whoever the narrator is playing fast and loose with this gender thing. The master mistress could mean, much like me, I'm a masterful mistress. Or it could be, much like me, a master mistress. The possibilities are endless. A woman's gentle heart. So at least the narrator is praising women in some way, shape, or form. A woman's gentle heart, but not acquainted with shifting change, as is false women's fashion. Women change their appearance as they go with makeup. You know, some women go in for that sort of thing. They don't know how to put just the lightest touch on to brighten up the cheeks. Shifting changes is false women's fashion. An eye more bright than theirs is what the narrator is saying to this love object. You have an eye more bright than a woman's, less false in rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazeth. Rolling is also a term for roving, so it's not just rolling as in they're fickle, but you know, a roving eye looking at, you know, who's going to provide for them best. An eye more bright than theirs, less false in rolling, gilding the object whereupon it gazes. Every place she looks, she sees favor. Oh, that one's cute. Oh, that one's cute. Good as gold, that one. Gilding the object whereupon it gazeth. But you are a man in hue, all hues in his controlling. So you have many facets to you. You have many colors to you, but everyone who looks upon you can see the beauty that's there. And everyone who looks on you is captivated. You can control everyone who sees you because of your extreme beauty. A man in hue, all hues in his controlling, which steals men's eyes and women's souls amazeth. You walk down the street and the dudes just can't keep their eyes off of you, and the women neither. You're a sight to behold, or to be beheld, I suppose would be the correct way. And for a woman wert thou first created. Well, we know what this goes for. You were created for a woman, anatomically at least is the implication. And by addition, me of the, and for a woman wert thou first created, till nature as she wrought thee fell a-doting. Nature just couldn't help pile on the glamour to you. And in adding beauty after gorgeous trait after wonderful quality, by addition, me of the defeated, by pouring on all this wonderfulness, she's defeated me. Nature has defeated me in giving you everything that you got, that everyone so wants. Because she added, by adding one thing to my purpose, nothing. As if to say, you were created for a woman, but I'm a man and I just wouldn't know what to do with it. But I could give Shakespeare a few hints or two, I suppose. But since she pricked thee out for women's pleasure, mine be thy love, and thy love's use their treasure. Yes, that's what pricked means. It's a pun on the word prick, and not really much of a pun because it's the actual word. It also means that, you know, nature's going along and she pricked thee out. She touches you and says, you're the one that I will choose. And when she did that, she decided that you would be for women's pleasure and that you would have my love. But thy love's use, your penis, for women's treasure. So women will get the benefit of your anatomy, and I'll just have to go eat worms in the garden, or the back alley, or the gutter, or, you know, down on Christopher Street, or somewhere that has worms hanging about waiting to be eaten. So this poem, it's a gender bender. It's a beauty of a gender bender. And much has been made about the fact that all of the rhymes in here, painted, acquainted, passion, fashion, rolling, controlling, gazeth, amazeth, all of the poem, all of the rhymes in here are what's called feminine rhymes. And there's a lot been made about that, but that only confuses things. I'm going to tell you a thing or two about masculine and feminine from an expert. Just kidding. Anyway, nobody seems to know why this is called a feminine rhyme. A feminine rhyme is simply a double rhyme. So both syllables rhyme. Passion, fashion. Painted, painted, acquainted. Rolling, controlling. Gazeth, amazeth. So we have double rhymes here. It's the only poem in the series that has this, and it is called a feminine rhyme. But nobody seems to quite know this whole thing about languages being gendered. There are some languages that have gendered nouns, like German has masculine, feminine, and neuter. In Spanish, a table is la mesa. It's a feminine word, but there's no real indication that anything, that a gendered word has any correlation with any kind of sexual characteristics. And what I've been able to find, and maybe if someone out there has been able to find something more, you can enlighten us in the comment section below. What it seems to have happened is that when they started calling nouns and verbs, not so much verbs, but when they started to say that a part of speech or part of a language is gendered, it seems like they were using the word for genre or for the genus, as in like genus and species. So it basically just means a type. You might just have been, you could call this a rooster part of language, or a hen part of language, or even a rooster part of language and a peacock part of language, for all I care. It's simply a way of categorizing language in a particular way. And they do believe that somewhere along the line there was a D in the French version of this genus, and somehow the D was kept along. And while I'm a big fan of D, while I'm a big fan of D, it does seem to confuse things when we talk about language as gendered. So if anybody can enlighten us about the origins of language being gendered, that would be wonderful. But for the moment, we're just going to ignore the fact that all the rhymes in here are feminine rhymes, because it doesn't seem to have any correlation, except maybe in Shakespeare's time he thought it was funny, because it is sort of funny to have what's called feminine rhyme all through this gender bending. Oh goodness, I'm having a bit of a meltdown in the Sonnetarium. I'm going to just reach down and get this. Oh. So feminine rhyme is simply a type of rhyme in which both syllables rhyme with one another. It's the only one in which all of these rhymes are in a sonnet. It's the only sonnet that has only feminine rhymes, and it's a gender-bending sonnet with a woman's face and master mistress and prick thee out for women's pleasure. Something certainly does seem to be going on as far as some sort of attraction between two men. Because we do understand now that there is a man speaker, which is quite interesting. It's maybe the first time that we have an actual gender for the narrator. It's definitely suggestive of sex. And in terms of homosexuality in a sonnet sequence, there are examples of that in other sonneteers. There was Richard Barnfield, who wrote Cynthia. There were Virgil's Arcadia, the eclogues, in which homosexuality is depicted as well. But every time that it appears in the Elizabethan times, everyone says, well, you know, I'm just trying to do what Virgil did, and they sort of played it off on that. But it does seem a bit strange. And as far as the position in the sonnets, Sonnet 19 seems to have stopped one thing, and we are all about love now. It's all about love, and it's certainly about sex. And it makes things very interesting. Is the narrator a fictional narrator? Is this biographical? Was this actually Shakespeare? Was Shakespeare gay? We don't know any of that for sure. Did Shakespeare dibble and dabble here and there with people of his own sex? Maybe. I mean, who knows? It seems like the theater was quite a permissive time, and I wouldn't rule it out. But as our good friend Stephen Booth says, something like Shakespeare was almost certainly homosexual, bisexual, or heterosexual. The sonnets provide no illumination on the topic. So I'm going to stay with Stephen Booth in that assessment, and all I'm going to do is see if maybe we can make sense of the whole. If this is the beginning of the next chapter, well, whew, it certainly made things quite interesting. We had a bunch of sonnets talking about procreation and time. Now we're talking about you've got me by the heart, and other parts of my body too that I, may or may not be able to use with you. So things certainly have started to get interesting. Stay with us for next week when we talk about Sonnet 21, and let's see where this saga goes. Until then, pay attention to all the wonders that are in your world. And remember, I love you. I am the master mistress of the Sonnetarium. I'm Tootight Lautrec. Mwah.